Welcome to Cyclone InCYders. I'm your host, John Miller, and today we got the whole gang here, all five of us. We got Logan, Spencer, Aaron, Max, all five of us here ready to go talk about some Cyclone sports. Last week, yeah, we did record, I promise you, but some technical difficulties after the show when we were trying to do quizzes. We lost it. And in that show, we kind of went over the TJ Oltzenberger hire at Iowa State. He's the new head coach here, men's basketball coach here in town, replacing Steve Prohm. So after that, we kind of talked about some of the women's performance in the NCAA tournament. They won their first round game against Michigan State, and then lost kind of a controversial officiated heartbreaker to Texas A&M in the next round. But they're going to come back next year stronger than ever. And we also talked about our bracket that was horrible. We had Utah State in the Sweet 16, if that tells you anything. But finished top 500 in the Iowa State fans group. So pat ourselves on the back there. But this week, we're going to talk about some men's and women's basketball, some transfers from the university leaving and coming in. So we're going to go over that. And just some more general stuff next on Cyclone InCYders. All right, welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. To start off here, men's basketball, Rasir Bolton, leading scorer from this year for the men's team, third team All Big 12 selection. He has said he is going to transfer. What do you guys think that means for this Iowa State team?
Honestly, this didn't really shock me that much. I think he really showed what he could do. Even it wasn't that great of a team. I mean, let's be honest, we were definitely one of the worst performed in the five big conferences. But I think he really proved what he can do, and he wants to take his talent somewhere else. I really just think he wants to just be a more beneficial player on a better team that he could go places.
Yeah, I was surprised, but also not surprised at the same time. I know after the season ended, he committed to Iowa State, but with a new coaching staff, you never really know what's going to end up happening. But he did say that he's graduating from Iowa State this year, so that's really cool. And I just wish him success and hope he ends up in a good situation because I think there's a lot of Power Five schools that could use him as like a second or third scorer. And yeah, so overall, kind of disappointed, but not really surprised. And with Iowa State probably going to be in a transition year. It's probably for the best for Rozier personally.
I agree with you, Aaron. I think I could definitely see him going to I mean, as in basketball, I think it's Power Six basketball school, but I also think as a result, you're going to see a lot of the younger players get more playing time, which that should be interesting and fun to see.
Yeah, when Bolton kind of came here a couple years ago from Penn State, I thought he was going to be our next NBA guy. That shot still needed to develop a little bit, but I thought he had kind of all those athleticism tools. And, he showed flashes here at Iowa State, but he's certainly not got to that level yet. So I feel like if he, wants to kind of continue playing basketball after college is over, maybe playing for a 2-win Iowa State team isn't the best place to do that. So wish him the best of luck. As we said, we kind of feel like he's going to end up in another Power 5 school, second, third option, but we'll see. Only, he makes that decision. But speaking of bringing in new guys, we got TJ Oltzenberger here as our new head coach. Do you guys think it benefits him more kind of starting fresh, out with the old, in with the new?
I think it's going to be a big help. I mean, like Aaron was saying, it's going to be a transition year for sure, but I think he's really going to be able to develop his own style, his own, uh, you know, coaches that he's brought in and his players that he's brought in. He really wants to, build Iowa State back to what it used to be, and really just wants to just set a message and leave a good mark when his career is all said and done here.
Yeah, there's always this idea that a coach has his guys that he wants to build around or give playing time to. And Rasir is a big loss no matter how you look at it. But one of the big knocks on Prohm is that he was never really able to develop a winning team with his guys. And part of that is just the great situation he had to start out with. But now Oltzenberger, for the most part, is going to have to start out with his own guys, which might give him kind of a leg up as opposed to Prohm. And I think it's good that there's going to be more playing time to go around and see what some of the players are made of since this is going to be a transition year. Hopefully, we win more than 2 games this year and win a conference game, but it's still definitely going to be a transition year. And the more playing time to go around for the younger guys without rubbing any of the older guys the wrong way, I think it'll be better for the team.
Yeah, no, I think I'm sorry, Spencer, do you want to go? No, no, I agree with you, Aaron. I think a good goal to go forward simply be winning a conference game and more than 2 games for the whole season. I think it benefits Otzelberger starting from fresh for a number of reasons, but mainly he can start to build his own tradition here at Iowa State.
I would agree with you guys that it does benefit him because like if you are like Prohm and where you started off your career really hot and then you go downhill, you have like, that initial expectation of we're going to be so good. Like kind of if you come in new and you're starting at the bottom and you can only go up from there, as a coach that can only help you. So I feel like Oltzenberger kind of sees this situation as a very appealing one, especially at the Power 5 level where not many times you're expected to be bad, so we'll see though. But he has made a few additions just in a short time here. Been less than a couple weeks. Probably more role players than stars. But what are you guys' kind of thoughts on those 2 additions?
I think it's just like you said, John. I mean, definitely role players, and it's going to give us more depth on the bench for our big guys. Robert being a 6'10" sophomore, he's kind of an underclassman that's just going to join a whole pool of them, and they can really just grow together, be leaders. And I think just looking at them, they've got great shooting inside, and they're going to be able to get the offensive and defensive rebounds that we were missing all last season. But yeah, I think they're both great additions. Definitely not stars, but we're lucky to have them.
Yeah, I think it seems like he's kind of taking sort of an NBA approach where you take flyers on guys that didn't work out elsewhere that seem like they have a fit in your potential system and see what you have with them, which obviously in college it's a little bit different situation than the NBA. But I think those are 2 guys that, with what Otz has in mind, they're going to end up fitting. There should be hopefully good bench pieces. Don't really want to see them as starters. But I think they kind of show what Otz wants to do with this team and what he wants to have as an identity, and hopefully they can contribute moving forward.
I think they're good additions. I think they'll highly contribute to Otz's style of play, and I believe I'm not sure which one's from Washington State. So
Kujic.
I think that's Kujic. Yeah, Kujic.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he already has that experience playing on a high stage. So I think he has a lot of potential in front of him.
Yeah, Kujic he averaged 6.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, but he can definitely shoot it from outside, kind of that stretch big that's more common nowadays. And then, Jones averaged 9.1 points with 5 rebounds, but obviously played at a little bit lower of a level of basketball. So we'll see. Hopefully they bring some, a big man presence that we haven't had in a couple years. But moving over to the women's side, we also have a couple of transfers. Madi Wise and Kylie Fuerbach have decided to leave the women's team. Wise said she wanted to play closer to home, and then Fuerbach, I think she didn't really play up to expectations, we could say, I guess. But how much do you guys think that hurts the women's team going forward?
I think with Maddie, when you look at her career stats, there's not a ton that jumps out to you, although she would get a fair amount of rebounds here and there, per game and whatnot. But I think really what she offered was she was a senior and she was a leader and she had experience that she could offer to, it's just on the men's side. We have a ton of freshmen and sophomores, underclassmen that need to be led and shown what kind of NCAA experience that their teammates have. And with Kylie, I think she kind of just got overshadowed by everyone else that she came in with. I think she, when she was able to play, she had some great games and showed what she had to offer. But now she just wants to take it, go to a different team and kind of play a better role somewhere else.
Yeah, I think with Wise just doing what she needed to do for her own personal life, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And she had a great career at Iowa State, and once a Cyclone, always a Cyclone. So just hopefully she'll have success wherever she ends up. And she had a great career here, so there's no hard feelings there at all. And then for Fuerbach, like what Logan said, she just kind of got overshadowed. And I think out of the recruiting class that came in, she definitely had the most growing pains out of all of them. Even in the NCAA tournament, there were a couple plays with just situational awareness and getting pulled by Fennelly. She kind of had a short leash there for a little bit. But now with Maggie, Espen McGraw hopefully being healthy next year, I also think that's a really big factor that contributed to Fuerbach deciding to go somewhere else. And I'm sure she'll wind up being a starter on some other team, and hopefully she can kind of start to put it together. It's definitely going to be the loss of a bench piece for Iowa State, but with how strong their other freshmen look this year, and then McGraw coming back next year, I think they should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, after this, it sucks because after the season Iowa State the Iowa State women's basketball team had, it sucks that, I mean, anybody who loses is going to be a pretty substantial loss. I mean, yeah, no, I'm with all of you. Wish them best of luck in their future endeavors, but at the same time, it sucks. But I'm sure Fennelly will. I mean, how many do we have returning next year? I mean, do you guys know off the top of your head?
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, yeah, next year it should be another good season.
Yeah, Madi Wise, when she came into Iowa State, she was almost like an instant starter, and her, I guess, minutes and play have kind of diminished a little bit, but that's kind of more due to her injuries. She's dealt with a lot of concussions and just like off the court kind of stuff. But as you guys said, she brought a huge leadership role. So I feel like losing her is going to be tough, but Iowa State, especially with Ashley Jones leading, I think they're going to be just fine. And as far as Fuerbach, she shot 27% from three this year, 19 for 70. Definitely kind of had some turnover issues and looked lost on defense at times. But that's not to say, she wouldn't have developed or anything like that. Great player, but she definitely probably didn't finish the year where she thought she would. So, yeah, those are some small pieces leaving the team, but we still expect the women's team to be successful heading into next year. But more kind of a in general question now. Do you guys think the transfer portal is kind of getting out of control? It seems like just left and right, we're seeing people from a bunch of schools declaring. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it's fair for them to do that, and you'll see this in any sport at any level. Well, I guess past college, but you're going to see people that want to take their talent somewhere else, whether it be they don't like the way the team is moving right now, or where they don't really see them sticking with them for the future. I think really, once it gets to as long as it doesn't get to the point where they're kind of diva-ish about it and they just want to leave for the money, where, in college you can't really do that. But, especially with Rasir, I think he just wants to go and be the best player that he can be, which he just doesn't see on Iowa State. So I think it's important. It's an important part of college basketball and football.
Yeah, I think the transfer portal's definitely been crazy, but I don't really have a problem with it, especially when you consider that head coaches can really do whatever they want. We saw with Chris Beard going to Texas that coaches aren't really expected to and never really have to display their loyalty. And if Chris Beard can go to Texas from Texas Tech, I honestly don't really care what the players do, especially if a player tried to go from Texas Tech to Texas, don't even know if they'd be immediately eligible, whereas Chris Beard is able to coach right away. So in this climate where coaches get to go wherever they want for money, if a player doesn't see themselves as a fit in a certain program and they want to leave and go somewhere else, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, I don't think the transfer portal is out of control by any means. I mean, the closest thing that NCAA can do to quote unquote punishing a player is making them sit out a year.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts kind of on it is like your commitment should definitely mean something. It shouldn't just be, picking a school, or at least I wasn't really raised that way to just like pick a school just based on sports. It's like a combination of athletics and education and just kind of like the experience you're gonna get. So it's like feels like to me a lot of players are just prioritizing athletics when they're not even going to really like go places most of the time after college for athletics. So it just seems like maybe we're taking athletics a little bit too far. But as you said, I think since coaches are able to change, players should be able to too. But sometimes it's a little wishy-washy in my opinion. But talking about some of those coaching changes, you guys mentioned Chris Beard going from Texas Tech to Texas. Shaka Smart went from Texas to Marquette. Miller brothers are out of town in Indiana and Arizona. But which coaching move have you guys liked the best so far?
Personally, even though I am a fan of Duke basketball, I liked that UNC stuck with Herbert Davis and hired in-house, kind of moved him from the assistant to the head coach. I think he's been great as an assistant coach. He's been with them since 2012, and definitely I think he's learned a lot from Roy Williams. So I'm happy to see a competitive like Duke UNC rivalry throughout the next couple of years.
Yeah, so there's two that really stuck out to me. I really liked Shaka Smart going back home to Wisconsin and coaching at Marquette. I think it's a great move for them and a great move for him personally. Got away from that Texas machine, and now I hope he'll be somewhere that he's hopefully more appreciated and can turn Marquette into something similar to those early 2010s VCU teams that he had. And I've always liked Shaka Smart, and it kind of sucked when Texas hired him, so I'm glad that he's out of the conference. And then Porter Moser to Oklahoma is also going to be very interesting after Lon Kruger's retirement, and mostly just because it will really matter for the perception of Iowa State's hire. Because if he turns out and Otts doesn't, it's going to be a really bad look for Iowa State when Porter Moser was available and another Big 12 team got him. So I think that's going to be a really interesting one to watch just in terms of how Iowa State handled things.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. No, sorry. No, I really like Shaka back to Marquette. I mean, it's going to be a different, I don't want to say level of competition, but different style of competition as opposed to the Big 12. I mean, I feel like I want to say he could potentially pick up some more of that, like you said, Aaron, that early 2010s VCU momentum that he once had.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with Aaron that like the Moser, how he does at excuse me, how he does at Oklahoma is really gonna impact the perception of the Iowa State hire because he was certainly one that I really liked, not just from watching Loyola and kind of how they play defense and that gritty style, but I just like the way he kind of gets that energy under his team. And Oltzenberger, we'll see with him, but he definitely appears to have the same mindset. So hopefully it doesn't end up mattering. Hopefully they both go on to have successful careers. But we're competing against Oklahoma, so we want to crush them next year. But we'll see. As you mentioned, UNC, Roy Williams, one of the all-time greats, is retiring. How do you guys think he ranks amongst the great coaches in basketball history? Top 10, 5, 3? What do you think?
I would say definitely the top 10. I personally, for me, definitely the top 5 or even the top 3. I think he's one of the best coaches of all time collegiately. I think what was important to me to note is that consistency. Since he has gone, even when he was at, I believe it was Kansas, and then going to North Carolina, he just was consistent, bringing his team to the tournament, having a great record going in, making sure that his team is ready to play and compete. I think he's just a great coach and definitely top 5 or 3.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that is going to be looked back on for years to come, and honestly only move up people's leaderboards, I guess, when they think about all that he accomplished. And he sat behind Dean Smith as an assistant coach for years. Finally got the opportunity, became the coach at Kansas, and then eventually went to North Carolina. Won 3 championships. He's third all time in wins. I don't think you can make a case that he's not top 10. I think everyone should have him at least top 5, and I don't know exactly where I would put him. Probably behind Wooden and maybe like Coach K for sure. But top 3 is not something I'm going to argue with someone about if they had him there.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he's in the top 5. I mean, unless you give me a spreadsheet of all the NBA stars he's produced, I'm hands down I'd put him in the top 5.
Just with like how memorable North Carolina has kind of been throughout the 2000s and the 90s, he's definitely up there for me. Kind of some of like the other ones I put on par with him. I think Wooden and Krzyzewski are definitely 1-2, but after that, I think it gets a little more hazy. I mean, you got guys like Jim Boeheim and Jim Calhoun, UConn legend, that are up there for sure. Even Bob Knight at Indiana. Just I would say he's maybe right outside the top 5 for me, but either way, great coach. Led North Carolina to over 20 NCAA tournament appearances, and I think he won two national championships in North Carolina, I want to say, in the early 2010s. But either way, North Carolina's been a powerhouse for so long, and only recently they've really fallen off. So kind of sucks that he's going to be remembered going out that way. But I think people are going to think about to the good times more than the bad. So with that, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about this year's tournament and kind of some of the best moments. So stick around. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Now we're going to talk about some of the best games of the tournament. To start, what do you, in your opinion, what do you guys think was your favorite game of the NCAA tournament this year?
Personally, I love watching great 3-point shooting. So it was really exciting watching Syracuse's first game, Buddy going 7 for 10 from 3, just shooting like a maniac. And obviously the UCLA Gonzaga game was just fun overall and down to the very last seconds.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with my Safari just went down for a second. Okay, so UCLA Gonzaga was obviously an all-timer. I don't think I really need to explain that one. And then the Oral Roberts wins over Ohio State and Florida, just because a 15 seed, just those grinded out wins where a lot of those close games you expect the higher seed to just find a way to win. So when a team like Oral Roberts is able to grind it out, I just really like those kind of games. Have Oral Roberts will always have a special place in my heart after this year, along with the Florida Gulf Coast from the past. And then the Abilene Christian win over Texas, just because horns down. And a small school in Texas beating Texas, now they have eternal bragging rights, is just hilarious. And then I also really like that Lumberjack guy from Eastern Washington going off against Kansas, just because the NCAA tournament has all kinds of characters that ball out that you never expect, and he's one of them. And he's also part of the transfer market, so I'll be curious to see where he ends up. But yeah, there was a few games. I think UCLA Gonzaga was the best, but yeah.
I want to say my personal favorite was probably Loyola winning the Battle of Illinois against Illinois, for that matter. They just showed up that game and balled it up nonetheless. I mean, Sister Jean with that triple-double, whew.
Yeah, I agree, Max. That was one I was going to say. Even though it wasn't close, it was just like the feeling of the game was very exciting to see and almost like, oh, deja vu. But they ended up losing to Oregon State next round. But I kind of like the Houston Rutgers game, 63-60. That was a very entertaining one to watch. And then on the other side, Arkansas. Even though they beat Oral Roberts, I know everybody wanted them to win, but that game was very exciting. probably the best one other than the Ohio State game for Oral Roberts in terms of excitement. And then Arkansas against Texas Tech as well. That was very entertaining. But I think we can all agree that UCLA Gonzaga was definitely the best. I mean, just the setting, Final Four, banked in three from just inside half court from Jalen Suggs. Insane game. But where would you guys kind of rank UCLA Gonzaga on your all-time list? Do you have some personal favorite games?
Uh, Personally, as a Duke fan, I obviously love the Christian Laettner in the tournament. You know, hitting that three with like 2.3 seconds left, just having a top of the key fade away. I think that's great. But nonetheless, UCLA Gonzaga this year is definitely in my top five. Just an entertaining game to watch, down to the wire, like you were saying, banked in three in the Final Four, just one for the record books.
Yeah, so championship game, I would put Chris Jenkins game winner for Villanova against UNC over the Gonzaga UCLA game. And just Marcus Page gets forgotten in that game, but the Iowa boy Marcus Page with that crazy three that he made, and then Chris Jenkins right away on the other end. That's an all-timer. Then one of my personal favorite games was the game against North Carolina in 2014 with DeAndre Kane's game-winning layup. And it was the game right after Niang broke his foot. So that was like really keeping the hope alive until the Sweet 16. That was a really cool one. And then that same year when Kentucky had the Harrison twins and Julius Randle, they ended Wichita State's undefeated season. And I was rooting for Wichita State in that one, but that was just a really great all-around game. And then final one, just shout out to you and I. 2 games in the same year. Paul Jesperson's buzzer beater. It was like a 3/4 court shot against Texas. And then their very next game in the round of 32, they had that all-time meltdown against Texas A&M, which just watching Texas A&M come back in that game was insane. So those are a few of my personal ones that I'll always remember.
Yeah, number one is hands down. I mean, I remember watching that game with Chris Jenkins hitting that buzzer beater. I think that's all time. Gonzaga, UCLA. I'm gonna throw that number two. Some of my other favorites though, Farouk my bracket back in 2009 when that UNI Kansas game. Man, I remember when I was a little kid watching that game, and I was like, what is going on? No, I'll definitely put that one up there. I mean, that's easily. I mean, for any college basketball fan, I think there are a select few games that you can bring up and they'll know exactly what you're talking about. And the UNI 8 or 9 seed against number 1 Kansas is one that stands out.
Shout out Ali Faroukmanesh.
Yeah, I would also bring up some of those recent ones, but I think, guys, how do we not mention NC State over Houston, the air ball, and then the layup to win the national championship? Jim Valvano running on the court like a madman trying to find somebody to hug. Like, after, I think everybody, if they've ever seen that documentary, like, it honestly brings tears to your eyes, just like the story of that team. And people don't realize how great of a squad Houston really had with Olajuwon and, like, how unbeatable he was. Kind of off here, but Olajuwon averaged 5 blocks a game in college. Like, nobody's doing that anymore. Nobody's doing that. Like, Olajuwon was legit. He was crazy. And NC State found a way to beat him. But also kind of up there for me, I would definitely have the Jenkins and then Suggs. Those are 2 that come to my mind. But guys, Mario Chalmers, top of the key, smacking that to beat Memphis, or they beat Memphis overtime, but to send it to overtime. That was a great game. Michigan in the Fab Five, they had some great ones. I think they lost the game where Chris Webber tried to call the timeout, but that's a memorable one. We could go on all night, but definitely I think we can agree UCLA Gonzaga is up there, probably top 5 for all of us. But kind of pivoting a little bit based on this question, I was just kind of thinking of it randomly. Would you rather win, and this is more of a professional sports question, would you rather win one championship and miss the playoffs for 9 seasons, or be a playoff team for 10 years in a row and not win a championship?
This was definitely tough for me. I bounced back and forth, but if we look at real life examples, we look at the Packers. They've had two Hall of Fame quarterbacks essentially back to back in Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And that's over a span of, 25, almost 30 years. I mean, and they have two championships to show for it. And I really just think that everyone's going to remember Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers as two of the best quarterbacks ever. And the Packers are going to still be a great franchise. But really, it just shows that, consistency going to the playoffs just proves that maybe, you don't always need to win a championship and, you have great guys around you. Another situation I think that is notable is John Elway with the Broncos. Even though he himself did win two championships, they consistently went to the playoffs, but just couldn't get the job done. But he will always be remembered as a great quarterback.
So for me personally, I'm a Jets fan, and we're going on a decade now of no playoffs. And I would happily take one of those AFC championship years, '09 and '10, well, 10 and 11 when it was actually the playoffs, and put a Super Bowl in there. And it would still suck to miss the playoffs for a decade, but I will always remember Mark Sanchez holding up the Lombardi trophy. So, and then also just like the Bengals very recently, they fired Marvin Lewis because they made the playoffs every year and didn't do anything with it. And I think a lot of Bengals fans would say that they would have taken a Super Bowl just one of those years and missed the playoffs the rest. But it depends on how successful your franchise is too, because like the Jets have one Super Bowl and it was in the 60s. The Bengals don't have a Super Bowl at all. So fan bases that are starving for a Super Bowl, they will take that over missing the playoffs every year. But a lot of the more successful ones, like the Packers, the Steelers, the Patriots, I think they'd rather be in the mix every single year than win it one and be garbage for a decade.
I'd probably have to say, I don't know. I'd like to be in the mix every year. I mean, you're getting that winning sensation. I mean, it sucks that you're not winning. You're not getting the job done completely. But I mean, you guys made excellent examples of teams that have done that plenty of times. I know. I think I'd rather take the decade-long playoff run.
I think Aaron made a good point that it's kind of all about your perspective and what you've experienced as a fan. And yeah, I'm going to be like Aaron and break down my own kind of fandom here with the Twins and the Vikings and the Timberwolves. Yeah, we haven't won a championship since the 80s and the 60s and never for the Timberwolves. So, well, I guess if you count the Minneapolis Lakers moving to LA Lakers, then Minnesota's won one. But
weren't the Twins like 93? They were
80, 87, 91.
91.
I got the Wheaties box down in my basement, man. I know this stuff in and out. But yeah, Vikings, I don't think they've even been to it since 76, but to the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think I would just rather have that one championship. It seems like what are the Twins, 18 consecutive playoff losses? It feels great every year just playing the Yankees and just losing. I mean, just once can we make it to the World Series and win a game? Just the World Series, I'm happy with that.
Nelson Cruz will deliver this year.
Nelson Cruz is winning MVP. Byron Buxton's going 40-40. Twins are looking great, even though they can't beat the Tigers. But it's okay.
Until they get swept first round of the playoffs.
We're good. Don't worry about it. It'll happen eventually. If the Golden State Warriors can get a super team, we can. So here's to hoping. But, we have one more question. Kind of going off that and some of the best teams, who do you guys think are some of the best teams in sports history?
Now, I only did basketball and football, and my basketball ones are a little basic, but I had to have them on here because essentially they're from two different eras and both were successful. One, the 96 Bulls. Obviously a more dominant, mid-range and paint game. Michael Jordan, arguably best basketball player of all time. Most people's GOAT. I understand that. You got Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen, two, great. Scottie Pippen very underrated, very underpaid, and Dennis Rodman, one of the best defensive players of all time, best rebounders. And then, you go to the Golden State Warriors, the 2016 Warriors. That is when Steph Curry, I believe, truly changed what the league has been into now, which is a three-point shooting league. You need your guards to be good three-point shooters. And even on that team, Draymond could pop up a three once in a while, and it could go down. They still hold the best record in league history, 73-9. And I just think those are two essential teams to have. And then football, the '06 Colts, the '13 Seahawks, and the '07 Patriots. I think really the '06 Colts, just with Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and then Marvin Harrison, one of the best wide receivers in Colts history and in league history. Going to the Seahawks, definitely one of the best defensive teams of all time. And then, also a very young, very raw Russell Wilson that delivered. And then obviously the 18-1 New England Patriots, just a great team. Randy Moss, best wide receiver of all time in my book, and Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time.
So my picks are very boring, but it's the way it is. So I've got the 96 Bulls, best combined record between the regular season and the playoffs in NBA history at 87-13. And they had three players that were first team all defense, which does not happen anymore in the NBA. It's insane to think that they could throw out a lineup that had three first team all defense players. And they also won the championship that year, which is what I hold against the Warriors, losing to LeBron that year with an inferior roster. Kyrie and Kevin Love, but they didn't measure up on paper to the Warriors that year. And then I also have in baseball the '98 Yankees. They won the AL East by 22 games. They went 125-50 overall, which is the best record in MLB history, combined between the regular season and postseason. They had the greatest closer of all time in Mariano Rivera, a young Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Andy Pettitte, David Wells, David Cohn. Their roster was just insane from top to bottom. And this is before they even started loading up with like Alex Rodriguez and players like that. So those are my two. If I had to pick a football team, I might say the '85 Bears or the '07 Patriots. I just know I actually got to watch the '07 Patriots, and as a Jets fan, it was crazy watching them that year. They felt completely unstoppable until the Super Bowl. So in my lifetime, I'm gonna go '07 Patriots for a football team.
All right. So this is a collegiate sports show, and I'm going to stick with a collegiate team for that matter. Super out there, out of the park, but the 1995 Nebraska Cornhuskers football team. Yeah, on that team you had the quarterback system of Brooke Beringer and Tommy Frazier alongside future NFL player and Pro Bowler Amon Green. That season they were just dominant. I mean, none of their opponents scored over 30 points. They won the national championship against Florida, 62-24. They averaged over 50 points a game, hands down. One of maybe the best college football team in NCAA history.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Max. That was back in the time when every team ran the triple option. People are like, oh, football is so boring nowadays. Like, I feel like if I had to watch the triple option night in and night out, I wouldn't really like football that much either. So, but mine are I always like being the unique guy. I always like picking the ones that nobody else wants to pick because I just want to be different. But I've thought about the ones you guys mentioned around. Yeah, 96 Bulls, great team. MJ, GOAT. Yeah, whatever. But I got to talk about the 89 49ers. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young. These guys in the playoffs. Okay, so the playoffs are supposed to be the best teams, right? They had a combined score of the playoff games of 126 Wait, let me pull 126-26. They outscored their opponents by 100 points in 3 games, and they lost 2 games all season, and it was by a combined 5 points. So they pretty much went undefeated in my book. Yeah, and Logan, I'm sorry to tell you, but Randy's just not the GOAT when Jerry Rice exists. I don't care if we're talking about different eras, da 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 da. Jerry's the GOAT. Let's just end it there. But, and then on the other side, let's talk about the Lakers for a second. Showtime Lakers, MJ, Kareem. Who else am I missing? There's another player, huge player, James Worthy. Showtime Lakers, they were fun to watch. And then we got the 71-72 Lakers. They had Wilt, Jerry West, Gail Goodrich, Elgin Baylor. I mean, those teams, phenomenal, worth mentioning. Nobody even brought up the Celtics in the 60s. They won a huge dynasty with Bill Russell, like 8 rings in 10 years or something crazy like that. But yeah, they were special. And then just as my final one, just because I wanted to talk about it, the Yankees in the 1920s with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. So everybody back then, right? This is when pitchers would throw like all 9 innings. They'd pitch back-to-back days, and pretty much just plumbers were out there playing baseball for the most part. I mean, they didn't get paid nothing. Just to think about that, you had Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, who are two. There's always the argument Babe Ruth would be good nowadays, but the separation between Babe Ruth and who else was playing at that time is just incredible to think.